Hey everyone, Pastor Nathan here. I want to talk further about Sunday's message, Ask Because Jesus Tells Us to. And if you haven't seen that, please check it out on YouTube. I go through an outline of why we should ask, some of the hindrances that stop us, and what that means in our relationship with God. I want to go a little bit further into that. And I ended the service with this verse, and let me read this to you. It's in 1 John 5, and I'll start with verse 14 and 15, where it says this, that if this is the confidence that we have towards God, that if we ask anything, according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the requests that are asked of God. That is a beautiful scripture that we can hold personally as a promise that we can ask anything according to the will of God. Now, this is where you're wondering, is what I am asking for pressing into and thinking about the will of God? That's a great question we should ask. And so we come to the Lord initially with that, because God's will should intersect our wants, our desires, to see if it's part of his divine directives. That's our goal. And we use this instrument here, prayer, fellowship with other believers, to seek God's will. We would call this his general will. That are we being obedient to the things that we know we should do, to see if we are able to have those specific promises on our life. Now, I'll tell you, it is easy to focus on the things that we don't have and not think about what we should be doing. But if we want to be faithful and seek the Lord in those personal things, we also need to be faithful to the general call that God has on your life as a Christian. But let's go into those specific aspects that I want to highlight. I shared briefly about how God provided me with not just any vehicle, but the one that I wrote down in my journal and prayed specifically about. That was a huge blessing. And I encourage you to be specific about what God has put on your heart as well, especially the non-material things. But like many of you, and myself included, I'm in this place where I'm waiting, because God gives 3 answers. You remember what those are? Yes, no, and later. So it's a yes, but a ... A yes, but you need to ask and seek before the knocking, before you get that. And so many of us are in this searching phase, and I encourage you to seek the Lord in that, because it can be hard when the waiting gets heavy. I understand. And the longer in the years, the more the difficulty the wait can seem. But this is why we have other people within the church, those that we trust, to help carry our own burdens. And that's biblical in of itself. It's also why we come to the Lord and say, Lord, I am still searching. I don't want to give up. That's the point of persevering. So I want to speak to you specifically about that if you are currently waiting for a relationship to be restored, for your finances to get better, for that opportunity and that door to open for ministry. Whatever it may be, there should be something that you are waiting for if you're honest and you've come to the Lord in. Because we're not called to live a life of complacency and say, well, I'm just good. Because then that means we either don't care or we don't understand God's will. But rather, as Christians, we should always be pressing in to say, Lord, what else do you have for me? How can I align myself with your will so I can step into that door, that next possibility for what you have for me? And that's exciting. So I do want to just read to you this verse to encourage you, and that's in Psalm 27, 13 and 14, where the psalmist ends with this and saying, I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Take heart. Wait for the Lord. You see, there are many things that don't seem to fit our expectations. Our experience shows otherwise. But that goodness of the land of the living is not too far off. God will get you there. Do you have your trust in the living hope that Jesus is walking you through there? We know it's not always a direct route, But God has a purpose in all of the curves and the turns and the ups and downs to get you there. But have hope. Wait for the Lord. Take heart and be strong. He's with you, and he will supply everything you need to get you to that place so that the door will be open. Keep trusting him. All right. Have a blessed day.